I have a lot of favorite foods from Finland. I would say probably, okay, oh gosh, I don't know. There are two that compete very often in my affection. So the first one is called ruisleipä, and it's a rye bread. In America, it's really soft and it's a lot like the regular store-bought bread, but in Finland, it's really, I don't know, it's kind of tough, but it has so much flavor, and like I just love like putting butter on it, and kermajuusto, which is like their basic white cheese. That was something that I got attached to very quickly. Like, it's a very strong flavor. It's not something you have so much in the States, but it's to die for. And the second one is riisipiraka, and they're like little rice hand pies, and it's like a rice pudding that's made with like milk and butter, so it's really rich, and then they fold it up in this little patty of rye dough. And I had one of those, I think it was like my first or second day in the country, and my friend that I was with, we went grocery shopping, and she's like, oh, you have to get some of these. So I, bought like two, because I was like, I don't know what they are. And, we took them back, because they have them in the, just like in the bakery, in the grocery stores. A lot of times when you just walk in, you can pull out from the bakery cupboards and just, like you can go get donuts at, the Walmart or whatever. It's the same thing. And we took them home and put them in the toaster, because when they come from the bakery, they're, you want to warm them up, and they're not so messy that you can't put them in the toaster. So that's what we did. I don't know if that's like traditional or anything, but put them in the toaster, put a little butter on it, and it was so weird the first time I had it. I didn't think it was gross, but I thought it was kind of, I don't know, like it was a little bit bland. That was my first impression of it. But then, the more I had them, like the more I grew to love them. And so I feel like that's kind of a lot of the Finnish food. What it was like these things that I didn't dislike right away, but that I wasn't used to. And so, I guess that's probably anytime you go to a new country and try a new food. But yeah, so riisipiraka and ruisleipä. And then they have a bunch of like really good pastries and breads and things. And then their chocolate is so good. Fazer chocolate is so much better than anything I've ever had. And I found a website where I can order a bunch online. So I have like a massive order of chocolate hopefully coming to me soon. And they also have ruisleipä on there. So I'm going to go order some. And it's like 3 to 5 day shipping. So next week I will have some ruisleipä, and I'm really excited about it. I don't think I've ever been more excited for something, which is so dumb. It's just bread, but whatever. I love it. Oh, and the dairy. Oh, I could go on without Finnish food forever. All of their dairy products. Raka. It's kind of a yogurty sort of product, but we don't have it here. It's a lot like cork. That's what I've heard people say. One of the things that they do with it is that they mix it with like an equal amount of whipped cream and then like berries or whatever, and it makes this really light, fluffy, summery dessert. Oh, I'm like remembering all sorts of things. Regarding the food in Finland, almost everything that I had, I liked. And I miss it all the time. I think about it all the time. I learned how to make riisipiraka, and they're actually not that hard. They just take a little bit of effort. They have these like special small tapered rolling pins that they use to roll out the rounds, and I'm getting pretty good at it actually. So the people in Finland who taught me how to make them, I think would be proud. Weird foods in Finland. Yeah, there weren't as many as I had expected, to be honest. A lot of the weirdest things that I didn't personally care for were more like seafood products. So like pickled herring is super common in Scandinavia and in the Nordic countries. I don't really care for it. It's funny because I like sushi and I like having like the raw fish on sushi, but when I don't know, there's like something about the texture where it's like similar to sushi fish, but not, I don't know. I don't like it, but maybe that's just because all the kinds I've ever had have been in some kind of mustard sauce, and I don't really care for mustard either. But pickled herring is probably one of them. Kalakukko is not the most disgusting thing I've ever tasted, but close. They take little, I don't even remember what the fish are called in English, but these little fish, I don't remember if they cook them beforehand or if they just cook them in the bread, but they wrap them in rye dough. And so like there are a couple different kinds of rye breads in Finland that I won't go into, but they take like a slightly more like loaf bread kind of rye dough, and they wrap it around this pile of fish and bake it. And then I think like the idea is to serve it cold, and I tried some because I was in the Savo region, and it's very common in that part of Finland, which is in the Mideast, kind of towards the eastern part of the country. It's really common there. I was there for like 6 months, and so you have to try kalakukko. I thought it was really musty and kind of gross, but people like it, and that, that's good for them. And then this one, I'm gonna get so much hate for this, but I cannot stand salmiakki. So salmiakki is licorice, but more specifically, it's like a really kind of a salty licorice, and they often come in these little boxes of pastilles, like little round chewy candies, or you can get them like in a hard candy form, and it's just really strong licorice flavor, and I've never liked licorice, so you go in there and you have this like really intense salty, sometimes spicy, depending on the type, licorice. And it's just, I tried it. I tried really hard to like it. I wanted to feel authentic, but I just couldn't do it. And it's funny because my mom is Danish, actually, and they have kind of a similar sort of salty, intense licorice. And, you know, I've grown up with it in the house. I've never liked it. So salmiakki was gross. Kalakukko was weird. I'm sorry, people in Finland. I can't do it. Oh, there's one more. Oh gosh, I can't even remember what it's called right now, but it's basically a fruit soup. They just kind of boil the fruit in, I don't actually know how they make it. I think it's fruit cooked in like kind of a cornstarchy juice liquid. So it's like thick-ish, depending on who makes it. But I've had a couple that I enjoyed. I had one time that was made with rhubarb and strawberry, and they had used really fresh fruit, and it actually tasted really nice. It was kind of like a compote or a jam, sort of, a little less sugar. But there was one that I had, the couple who made it for me and my friend, they were so nice, and I loved them so much. But they made, and it kind of tasted like fruit flavored mucus. I ate it because I was a good guest, but it was weird. That's not something I would ever necessarily want to eat by itself. Like poured over ice cream, sure, but by itself, probably not. One of my favorite Finnish traditions is the sauna. In English we say sauna, but fun fact, that's a Finnish word. So if you ever say sauna, you should say sauna because that's how it's pronounced. If I remember correctly, that's the only Finnish word in the English language is sauna. It's a huge tradition. I think some of the other Nordic countries do it as well, but in Finland especially, like it's a big deal. Most families have a sauna night, one night a week where they go to sauna no matter what. If you buy a home in Finland, there's almost always a sauna built in. If you have an apartment, some apartments have the saunas in the apartment. Some apartment buildings have a communal sauna that you can like schedule time at. That's something that they do every week, or at least, you know, regularly. Some of the older homes even have separate buildings for saunas. I guess a home doesn't have to be older for it to have a separate sauna, but a lot of families that I knew who lived out like on the lake, which is pretty common. Finland is a big country, but the population is not very big comparatively, so there's a lot of space. And there are cities, but a lot of people live in more rural areas, and that's a lot more common for you to go out and just drive through the forest until you get to someone's house. Like I did that tons of times, drive, you know, half an hour into the forest to find someone's house. But, you know, if you live on a lake, they will have like a separate sauna building. So you go to sauna, and traditionally what they do is, you know, they go to the sauna, and then they go from the sauna, and then they go into the lake, and they swim in the lake a little bit, and then they go back into the sauna, and then they are in there for a little while, and then they go back into the lake and back and forth a couple times. A lot of what the purposes of this is like, it's kind of like a cleansing thing. It's not just like, oh, we're gonna take a bath. It's like, you know, the sauna opens up your pores, and then, you know, you go and swim in the lake, and it closes it up, and apparently it's really good for your health. And if you have a sauna in an apartment, I always assumed, I don't know if no one ever told me that this is what they do, but this is kind of what I assumed, that they would go into the sauna and then they jump into the cold shower and then go back in. They even do it during the winter. Most of the time that entails cutting a hole in the ice. I never did that, but they, you know, they go into the sauna and then they go into the frozen lake, and they go swimming in the frozen lake. And I think that's nuts, but you know what? You grow up doing it, you get used to it. Traditionally, they go to the sauna naked. When I was a missionary, you weren't allowed to go to the sauna. I don't know all the whys behind that. I can imagine some of the whys behind that, but as a missionary, you weren't allowed to go to the sauna. So when I went back to visit 2 years ago, I got to go to the sauna a few times, and it was summer, so it wasn't as cold, but I went 3 or 4 times. One of the times we went with a group of women from the local congregation. They told us, they're like, you can wear bathing suits, you can go naked, it's up to you. My mom and I both chose to wear bathing suits just because of what we're used to. That's a funny thing about Finland, is that like they're really reserved, but in America we have this much more like uptight sense of like physical modesty when it comes to like wearing clothing. That's not normal. Like seeing naked people in Finland is not that weird. A lot of people, they grow up going to sauna with their naked relatives, or like, you know, like they're a lot more open about that kind of stuff, which I think is very remarkable actually, because they have a really healthy body image in general. I mean, I'm sure it's not, you know, perfect, but you know, compared to other places, like the Finns generally have a very healthy body image, and I think that's really cool. But anyway, so we go to the sauna, we're both wearing bathing suits, and like all the women are naked, and like it's not weird, you know, but it was definitely like, I guess that might be like a slight element of culture shock. So that was fun. When we went, you know, then we went and dipped into the lake, and then we went back in the sauna, and we did that a couple times, and it was great. We also went to a smoke sauna. One of the couples that we stayed with one night when we were in Kuopio, they have a smoke sauna. So in a regular sauna, they have a fire there, or an electrical box, depending on if you're in a traditional sauna or like an apartment sauna, it depends. But it heats up these rocks, and then you have a bucket of water and you throw water on the rocks, and that creates steam, and then you sit in this steamy sauna. And it's kind of like a steam room at like a sports club or something. But the smoke sauna, what they did is they got the room really, really hot first, and then I'm trying to remember all the technicalities of it, but like somehow the smoke heats up the room, and then they let the smoke out, and there's no steam involved, and so it's a lot drier. It was a good experience, but it was definitely not something I preferred. But this couple, they lived on a lake, so we went to the sauna and we went to the smoke sauna, and we got all hot and sweaty, and then we went and we got in the lake, and it was very cold, but it was great. That was another Finnish tradition that I think I kind of wish I'd gotten to do as a missionary, because it is very relaxing, and I think if I'd done that as a missionary, I would have been a lot less stressed all the time. But I'm really grateful that I got to go back and try it, because it's a very important part of the culture and something that they're very proud of, as they should be. They actually changed that rule recently, so now missionaries can go to the sauna. There are a lot of regulations on it to make sure that missionaries are safe and that they do it right. Like, I don't think they're supposed to go by themselves. They have to go with like a member of the congregation or someone that they're teaching, so that the Finns are doing it so that they don't like burn themselves. But yeah, missionaries are allowed to do it now, and I'm jealous. I'm not gonna lie to you. I wish I could, like I said, I wish I could have gone to the sauna as a missionary. You know, I got to do it, so it doesn't matter if I did it as a missionary or as a civilian. I got to do it, and that's what matters. I think Americans should have saunas in their house. When I build a house someday, if I build a house, because who knows, I'm going to have a sauna, and no one can tell me otherwise. One of my favorite things about like the Finnish apartments, and not every apartment had this, but in a couple of my apartments, we had a cabinet over the sink. The cabinet had dish racks in it. So you open it up, and it's just like a regular cabinet, but instead of like wooden shelves, it's like shelves of wire racks. And so when you wash your dishes in the sink, and then you put them in the cupboard over the sink, and then it drips down onto the stainless steel countertop, and then you just, wipe all the water off the counter, and then your dishes are like put away. We had a really small apartment in Tampere. Like, we basically just had a kitchenette, and that was really convenient, and something that I think is so ingenious, because you're not taking up counter space to dry your dishes, and also something that I will implement into my home someday. I will build myself a Finnish drying rack cabinet, because it's brilliant, and I don't know why we don't do it in America.